Salutations. On August 19th, 2022, there was a Medium.com article published which produced some very damaging and sensitive information about Caleb Maupin and his relationship with former CPI members, whom he had fallen out with. This particular instance brings to my mind the case of Henry Ward Beecher, a mid to late 19th century preacher based out of Brooklyn's Plymouth Church, and his fall from grace when feminist activist Victoria Woodhull exposed to the press that Beecher was unfaithful to his spouse and was having an affair with one of his congregation members. Beecher, in that particular instance, deserved public censure, as he proclaimed to be a man of the Lord in public, but was tempted by the flesh in private. However, Beecher's private shortcomings does not negate the net positive impact that he had on society overall. All throughout the 1850s and 1860s, Beecher used his church to provide refuge for hundreds upon hundreds of runaway slaves, using his church as an underground railroad location, and what more, when slave catchers were reported to have been within New York, Beecher would take it upon himself to hold reverse auctions, where he would have a runaway escorted upstairs into the main congregation room, and he would raise money to purchase their freedom, where the slave catcher would go back down south empty-handed. Henry Ward Beecher's reputation was destroyed by this one sex scandal, in spite of all the good things that he did to free hundreds of oppressed people from the bondage of slavery. In hindsight, what Beecher did in his private personal conduct was wrong. But the wrong that he did in private is still far outweighed by the net positive that he did in public. Back onto the subject of Caleb. The information produced most certainly brings into question Caleb's personal conduct in private and ethical shortcomings. And I will say straight up, while I am very disappointed with Caleb relative to his conduct with one of his accusers, and he needs to apologize to them, I'm not going to be an opportunist and outright disown him and cancel him and kick him while he is down because of his private transgressions that were made public. Especially in this age of cancel culture opportunism, where everyone seeks to tear others down so they can make themselves look better as a means to deflect their own shortcomings onto someone else. I'm also not going to beat down on him and cancel him because that would make me a hypocrite for doing so. A few years ago, I had a major psychotic break triggered by falling outs with two of my closest friends, who I have since made up with after 3 years of not speaking to either of them. And I went off the deep end and almost took my own life and was essentially reduced to having no job, no money, no nothing at all, with all the people who I considered friends abandoning me. The first person to reach out to me and check up on me was Caleb. I owe him a debt of gratitude for believing in me and sticking up for me when I was at my weakest and most vulnerable state. So, in the interest of being fair, not popular, in the interest of being fair, I'm providing him with the same courtesy that he provided me with. And while I do not approve of his personal conduct towards others, I'm also someone who does believe in giving people second chances if they truly and sincerely work to improve upon their shortcomings and make strides to become a better person. Truth be told, one of my first jobs after I got out of high school was being a watermelon truck driver in Newark, New Jersey. I worked in an economically desperate neighborhood. I often found myself working alongside of the homeless, drug addicts, sex workers, ex-cons, Bloods, Crips, and straight-up killers. I have worked with people who openly admitted to me that they have murdered people in the past relative to gang initiation rites. In the eyes of respectable society, these people were beyond redemption and beyond forgiveness. However, as they have worked their ass off alongside of me, sweated alongside of me, and were compassionate towards me, even when I was green and didn't know what the hell I was doing. I decided to forgive them because while they did commit unfathomable wrongs in the past, as a byproduct of social and economic conditions they found themselves in, which were beyond their control, they were working to improve their future, even though their efforts were to wind up in vain. I have worked with and have forgiven people who have done far worse things than Caleb did. Unfortunately, Caleb's personal misconduct is going to be used as ammunition by the likes of Vosh, who really is in no place to be throwing stones at anyone, considering that he openly jokes about legal adults having sex with minors and has expressed that he has no issue with child pornography. And Jason Unruhe, who is just some delusional Maoist who doesn't practice what he preaches, considering that he can't persuade anyone outside his context to embrace his sad little narrow worldview of global liberation, and other detractors to smear Marxist-Leninists and other anti-imperialists who reject left-wing neoliberalism. They must be refuted and denounced for their hypocrisy and their opportunism in using Caleb's scandal as a means to bolster their distorted and demented worldviews, which only tear down proletarian movements instead of building them up. Back on the subject of Caleb's accusers, I will express with great resignation that these accusations were indeed in good faith. And once again, those who Caleb personally wronged, Caleb needs to apologize to them and own up to his transgressions. There's no other way around it. He needs to go to therapy. He needs to get help. And he needs to get his life and his priorities in order. While I personally disagree with the manner of which how his dirty laundry was aired in public, as I feel this should have been conducted internally instead of publicly, I will say that none of the accusers, even those who I personally do not like, are federal agents. And this talk must end that there's federal agents conspiring against Caleb. Once again, while I'm very disappointed with Caleb, I understand the man has some psychological issues and some childhood trauma that he needs to work out. But I'm not going to cancel him, and when he gets his head on right, and when he feels ready to put himself out there in public again, I will look forward to working with him. And as a friend of his, and as a promise to everyone else who knows him, I will personally see to it that he does not relapse back into toxic habits that do not serve him or others. That is all I have to say. This is Comrade Pella, signing out.